Okay, if I could have everyone's attention for a minute, please. Thank you. I want to talk about a very common mistake that happens specifically with multiplicity 2. Well, let's use this as an example. So this is question 7 on page 123. And we're going to try to solve k of x equals 0. To do that, we want this in factored form. It's going to be easier that way. So let's write it as, oops, gotta actually factor out. That's the first, so I'll just leave it. Let's factor out that x squared. When we factor it, two numbers that add to be -2 and multiply to be -8 would be -4 and +2. Is this correct? Did I factor correctly? It's not correct. Because this function is not the same as that function, because I forgot the x squared. That's the first issue. Factoring out an x and then forgetting to keep it in there. Now those are the same. So let's put it on a graph. First, let's identify the multiplicities. At x equals 0, the multiplicity is what? What's the power on the x equals 0 term? 2. At x equals -4, the multiplicity is 1. And at x equals, oh, I put -4. Is that correct? +4. Yeah. -2, the multiplicity is also 1. With a good enough graph, I need to know basically where the x-intercepts are and what the end behavior is. So for end behavior, go back to your standard form, which I could also call end behavior form. What's the degree of this polynomial? 4, and does it go point up in both directions or down in both directions? Up, because the leading coefficient is positive. So I'll start by just putting those up arrows toward the ends. And then I'll put my x-intercepts down. I've got one here at -2. I got one here at 0. And I got one here at 4. And then I just connect the dots. If it's a multiplicity 1, it should just cut straight through. But I'm up here on the left side, so it must cut down beneath. Now I'm going to show you the most common mistake for a root with multiplicity 2. What is it going to look like at that spot? A U, right? So I do this. Okay, I draw a U. Was that correct? Is that what you all have? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you have that. You can kind of hide it. Because you see the U right there. But remember, it's not about what's happening overall. It's happening in a tiny window. Does that look like a U? It does not. That's the most common mistake, is you know it's supposed to be a U at 0, so you draw a U that cuts through 0. Instead of just drawing it the whole way, go ahead and put that shape in first. Oh, it bounces off like that. And then ... it cuts through like that. And now when you connect those dots, you get cutting through at -2, bouncing off at 0, and cutting through at +4. That's cutting through with the U is the most common mistake for multiplicity 2. It doesn't happen with multiplicity 3 because you're still, you're waterfalling and that's not an issue. But seeing that U shape coming down is really easy to convince you that it goes through and instead it bounces off. Remember, we got to use our little tiny windows just around the point itself, ignoring everything else. That's what I want to say about this one. Once you have a good enough graph, it's pretty easy to solve a polynomial inequality by graphing. The way I like to do it is I like to just color in on the graph where it matches my, so it's this part here. and I'll put little parentheses to remind myself. Right, so that's where it is, and that corresponds to those two sections right there. -2 up to 0 and 0 up to 4. All right. Was there anything else on here? Nope. All right. You may continue. We've got about 15 minutes left in the period. There's no exit ticket today, but if you want to check before you leave, that's not a bad idea. If you want to continue working because you still have room left to go, then I definitely recommend you stay here and work and get assistance from us. You may continue.